Okay, this is the first time I've used this particular program for recording, and I'm hoping it works. So, supply and demand for small markets is going to be different than supply and demand for large markets. Supply and demand for large markets have big sweeping curves that are continuous functions, basically, because you've got thousands of people participating and infinitely small changes in price per quantities, and so you end up with these downward sloping curves or upward sloping curves. Well, when you have a small market like a small town roofing, how many roofers can a small town support? So basically, you're going to have a few roofers and a few customers, because not many people need roofs in a small town in a short time period. And so you basically don't have enough business to keep a lot of roofers in business. So you only have a few roofers, which gave me some trouble when I was new here in town, because I didn't know the roofers, and a storm took the roof off the back of my house. And it was summertime. Suddenly the roof was off the back of my house, and water was falling from my second floor into the first floor rooms, and it was a big mess. And I called roofers, and they says, well, we can get to you in a month or two. No roof on the back of the house. I was like, oh, you're kidding me. And so basically I had to pay more to lure someone back into business that had left the business. He had left the business because he was having trouble getting workers who would show up regularly, and apparently he had a big job at one of the big houses in town, and he ordered $25,000 or $35,000 worth of roofing materials or something. It was a huge amount, and the workers didn't show up. They had been paid for the last job, and I guess they thought that was enough money to go spend on whatever. So he got stuck with he lost the job, and he got stuck with all of that roofing material, and he said, forget this, I'll never do it again. But I had to pay him more to lure him into doing it in an emergency, and he did it as a favor to the guy who was working to help me get all the water and stuff cleaned up and rebuild the flooring and ceilings. So I realized then this is a great example of a small market. So what I've done here is, I have made a demand schedule where P stands for price and Q stands for the quantity in some short time period. I don't know, 2 weeks or something. So with demand, that's the buyers. That's people like you and me that want to have roofs put on our house. And let's say it's a small house. And what usually happens is we have people with different budgets. And the higher the price, the less people want to pay it. So basically, only one person wants to pay, has the budget for $6,400 to put a roof on. 4 people would be willing to pay $3,500, and 10 people would be willing to pay $1,800. Now, they probably might not be able to find a supplier or a roofer, but they put a new roof on at $1,800. So I want to show you how we draw that demand curve. So what we're going to do, let me get this line drawing tool, see if it'll draw something straight. If we have, along the bottom here, we have the quantity, hang on, I need to, quantity there and the price on this side. If you were to graph this first pair, X and Y, Q and P, just like in math, we would say, okay, 1 would be about right there, right? And 6,400 is the budget. And so what we would do is we would draw a straight line out from the axis until it gets to 1, and then down. Okay, boy, I really screwed that up. I'm not going to use that straight line thing. I'll just make a wobbly line. So the first one, oh, that's 6,000. Hang on. 6,400 would be about there, right? So it's going to go out as far as 1, and then it's going to drop down to the next price. I do need that straight line thing. Let's try this again. The next price is what, 3,500, which is going to be about there, right? So we're going to drop that line straight down to about 3,500. Come on, just there. I made it go down too far, so let's erase a little bit of it. That's about right. So at that point, we're going to have 4 more. So we're going to go from 1 over to 5. So we're going to go over to about there. So about there. Oh, it needs to be a nice horizontal line. And then, and by the way, up here, geez, up here at the top, it just was a real short, flat line there. Okay, now it's going to drop down to about 1,800, which I'd say is about there, I guess. And that, you'd add 10 more. So you'd go from 5 to 10 more, all the way over to 15 at, hang on, you would drop down, straight down, till you got to 1,800, and then over, horizontal. If I can get my clumsy finger to just let go of this, right? Nope. Right. And then at 15, wait. At 15, it's going to drop straight down. And let's see if I can erase the ugly squiggles there. Okay. These are supposed to be horizontal and vertical lines, and I've done a really horrible job of it, but anyway. And this one here was supposed to go straight down as well, and it didn't. But anyway, that's how you would draw the demand curve in a small market. You would draw it as a stair step. In this case, we had a stair step of one person who had a budget that could pay the $6,400 or was desperate enough. By the way, I'm really annoyed with State Farm. They wanted to pay me the going rate of, let's say $3,500, because that was the normal rate that they paid normally for a roof, but that wasn't the storm damage rate. When you have storm damage and your roof is off and you can't find someone who will put it on for, say, $3,500, you will pay $6,400 to get a roof on. And we'll talk about that as you learn more about supply and demand. When there's more demand, the price goes up. So what happened is, given the supply of roofers, the only way I was going to lure someone into doing this job was to pay more. But State Farm paid me as if I was, it was just a regular sunny day, not a day with the small funnel cloud. So just saying, I'm not going to, I wouldn't advise using State Farm if you can avoid it. They didn't do right by me. Anyway, so this is their supply curve. So let me retrace it a little. Demand curve. The demand goes over one, down, across, down, across, and down. And notice that we went from 1, and we went 4 more over to 5, and then 10 more over to 15, because there's a total of 15 roofs that can be done, say in a month or 2 weeks or whatever, depending on the size of your town. This would be a demand curve in a small market. It looks very different than the ones you see in the textbooks that go like that, right? Well, that's when they're talking about the demand for Coca-Cola, and there's millions of people drinking Coke. But if we're talking about a small market, like for putting on roofs in Martin, it's going to be a stair step. Next slide. Let's look at the supply. Now, supply, you're going to do the same thing, but you have to realize that the suppliers have costs. So if the suppliers have costs, some people are low-cost suppliers. Some people have high costs. Maybe they're new in the business and they still have to pay, they're paying loans and mortgages on their equipment, whereas somebody that's been in for a long time has their equipment has been paid for a long time, and they don't have a lot of current cash flow issues, and maybe if there's a storm, you're going to have to lure someone out of retirement, which is expensive, or maybe you're going to have to lure someone in from another county, and they're going to have to pack up their crew and have spend extra money on gas and meals and stuff, taking care of the crew because they're out of town, right? By the way, this is an issue when you're talking about, hurricane damage. You can get those roofs repaired quickly, but you've got to allow the price to go up so that people from other states can bring in their roofing crews. You can't expect them to charge what the regular local roofing crews would have charged. I always hear this, after a major hurricane. Oh, it's not fair. These people are jacking up the prices on roofing because people are desperate. No, they're jacking up the prices because people are desperate, yes, but they're willing to come in. If you've got a North Carolina hurricane and people from Northwest Tennessee roofers say, hey, let's go to North Carolina. They need roofers, and so they get their crew and they load up the truck with supplies and they head to North Carolina. Isn't that going to cost them more? And would they come and help if you said that they had to charge the same price as a local person in North Carolina? So actually allowing the price to go up allows for help to come in and the quantity of roofers to increase. So we're going to start with the low prices with supply and move up to the high prices. So we're going to look at their costs. Okay, so this is their costs. So they won't sell for less than their cost. They just can't. So let me line this out. I'll say I'm not going to do this proportional. I'll say that that's 2,600, and I'm just going to write 26. And I'll say that that's 3,300, and I'll say that that is just 33, just to make it easy to write. And then 61, I'll put it about there. So I'm just kind of fudging it in there rather than count off and get it exact. But basically, we're going to go, this particular market only has 5 roofers, so let's just count them off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So, the first roofer has a cost of 26. So that will be the least that person is willing to put a roof on. They'll gladly take a higher price, but they won't produce anything below the 26. And that's just one person, one low-cost person, probably some older roofing company that has older trucks, older equipment, but it's all paid off. You got that? All right, so then if you want to move over to another the next two roofs are going to cost more. They're going to cost 33. So you go straight up, and then the next two. So that means we're going over to 3, right? So we're going to go at 33. We're going to go over to 3. That's 2 more. 2 more. And then the price goes up to 61. So it's going to be, what, right there? So we're going to go up to 61. And then 2 more. So there's 5 total. But you have 1 and then 2 more and then 2 more. So 2 more will take us over to 5. So I'm just putting dotted lines so I can find how far to drive this over. Okay, so go over to 5, and at that point, it doesn't matter how much you're willing to pay. There's no more supply. Actually, there probably would be. If you said you'd pay $1 million, someone would come from Florida and put a roof on for you. But still, in this market, we're going to assume that there's only 5 roofs that can be put on. Okay, so you can get one at $2,600. In fact, I'm going to highlight this with a highlighter. One at $2,600, and then you have to go up to get 2 more roofs at $3,300, and then the price goes up again because you've got a high-cost person, someone that, for example, came out of retirement. It was actually a young guy. He came out of retirement, but he charged me more, which is fine. I had to get it done. I just wish State Farm had paid for it. I had replacement cost. You would think, they made all kinds of arguments about, well, it was an old roof. Huh? I had replacement cost insurance. All right, so then, there we go. 2 more would be available in this particular market here at $6,100, and then after that, the price could go way up, but there's no more roofs available. So this would be a supply curve. And notice the supply curve slopes upward because the higher the price, the greater the chance that the quantity will increase. So basically, suppliers, there's low-cost suppliers, there's high-cost suppliers, and at low prices, there's just not very much quantity available. At higher prices, there's higher quantities available. Now, I'm going to leave this one here on the board, and then I'm going to bring in the demand from the other slide from here. So what did we have at 6,400? There was one. Okay, so let's say it's right here. So we'll go over to 1. Okay, and then the price dropped down to, what was it, 3,500 and 1,800, and they had 4 more demand for 4 more at 3,500. So we're going to drop that price to about 3,500. And 4 more. At that point, we've run out of supply. But still, let's go ahead and attempt to draw the rest of it. Then it drops down to 1,800, and then goes out to, say, 15, and then drops down to 0. Okay? So we don't really need the arrow there. I just put that there because I thought for a minute I might just take it off the page. But basically, it would go over all the way to 15 because that was the total that there was demand for. So basically, the people that were willing to pay $1,800 have no chance, right? They're not going to be able to buy anything. Now watch this. The demanders have a budget, and they are willing to pay less than their budget, right? The suppliers have costs, and they are willing to pay They're willing to accept a price higher than their costs, but only to the left of where they cross this quantity, 3. Only to the left of that point will they agree. See, here you've got people willing to pay $6,400 and well, it's just one person says, well, I'll take any price above, what, $2,600, right? So these people are going to agree and they're going to do business. Can you see it? Okay. Also, the suppliers are willing to take a price higher than $3,300, and the demanders are willing to take a price lower than or equal to $3,500. So these people are going to do business, and so that'll work. But what about here? What about over here? These people will only sell at prices at or more than their costs, and down here, that's way below their costs. So they're not going to be able to do business. So basically, these trades, all the trades over here to the right of where the demand and the supply cross, will not happen. Does that make sense to you? Okay, since I have more to say, but since this is the first time I've actually used this particular project, I'm going to break this up into 2 videos because I don't know about this software, and I don't want to waste my time if this isn't going to work. So this is the end of video 1, if I can figure it out.